Yeah, I'm going to share it now. So I had asked you guys to bring in rainbows as a part of the worship service that you could participate in. And I put together, I guess what you might call a musical meditation. I hope you enjoy. Well, it's not musical if you can't hear it, can you? Not sure why that happened. Well, you know what? Can't find the music. Not really sure what's going on with that. One of the things that I love about this community is that it is not necessary to get it right all the time. I asked you for these rainbows because we were talking about the story of Noah and the covenant that was made with him by God to not destroy the earth. And I think this is a wonderful story because the only reason I can imagine that God would have chosen not to destroy the earth is because God realized that they had done something that they never wanted to do again. And that to me tells me that this is a story about how even God can have the chance to grow. This is the first of 6 Sundays in a row where we will be exploring the 3 parts of our mission statement. Our mission statement, I think, is more exciting or a little more boring than mission. Mission seems like a goal, maybe the tape's going to explode in 5 minutes. But for the next 6 Sundays, we will be exploring what it means to be a compassionate community, what it means to engage in courageous action, and what spiritual searching looks like for us. Each of these 3 we use 2 services for each, and each of these 3 will be shared both with me as the preacher, and also with reflections from other members of Northwoods. This Sunday, I'm talking about compassionate community. There are 2 parts to this. One is compassion and the other is community. I know I'm starting out with the really big ideas. So what is compassion? Compassion literally means to suffer together, which is kind of a bummer definition for a word that I usually associate with really nice things. It comes from the Latin, as so many words do, the Latin prefix that means with, and pati, which translates as suffering. Now, I don't really know if it is just alleviate suffering that makes a community or a person compassionate. I invite you to take a minute of silence to enjoy the remainder of our artwork. It is our compassion, our desire to alleviate suffering. Because compassion is more than just feeling someone's pain or suffering with them. Compassion is the feeling that arises when you are confronted with another's suffering and feel motivated to relieve it. Our compassion motivates us to work for a better world, to seek justice, equity, and compassion in relationships, to quote our second principle. But I think that we can do a little better than simply desiring to alleviate suffering. By the way, that is a fairly impossible task in this world, as I think we have probably all learned in our own ways. Suffering is part of the human experience. But we are not just here to suffer together. And our care for each other extends well beyond our desire to relieve each other's suffering. Compassion can also mean shared dreams and desires, celebrating each other's joys as well as each other's suffering. Community seems a bit easier to define, and compassionate community would just be a community that is compassionate. A community is just a group of people, right? Well, yes, but once again, I want to challenge us to think a little more expansively. And I want to share with you a quote from M. Scott Peck from his book, The Different Drum, Community, Making, and Peace. He says, "In our culture of rugged individualism, in which we generally feel that we dare not be honest about ourselves, even with the person in the pew next to us, we bandy about the word community. We apply it to almost any collection of individuals, a town, a church, a synagogue, a fraternal organization, an apartment complex, a professional association, regardless of how poorly those individuals communicate with each other. It is a false use of the word. If we are going to use the word meaningfully, we must restrict it to a group of individuals who have learned how to communicate honestly with each other, whose relationships go deeper than their masks of composure, and who have developed some serious commitment. Communicating deeply, going deeper, making serious commitments. These are what true community offers, and what it asks of us as well. Perhaps, I wonder if true community is by its very nature compassionate community. Communicating deeply, going deeper, and making commitments. It's a big ask. In most of our lives and in our society at large, our media presentations, the way we talk about politics, we learn not to trust each other. We learn to rely on only ourselves, and it is hard to unlearn this lesson. Maybe no one has ever ingrained in you those specific words, but the implicit curriculum, shout out to all my educators, the implicit curriculum, the things we learn without being told explicitly of our society, is individual liberty. Trust no one, especially if they are not like you. This is one way that our compassionate community seeks to challenge the culture around it. Both compassion and community ask us to take a risk. They ask us to make ourselves vulnerable to others, and vulnerability can be frightening. When you put your heart out there, when you make yourself open to relationship with others and sharing deeply, your heart can get hurt. I love you too much to pretend that it is otherwise, so I'll tell you, you will get hurt. You will get hurt by both your compassion and by the communities that are most dear to you. But that is not all that you will get. And that's certainly not all that you will get from this community. I am here as a Unitarian Universalist and as a person whose vocation is building this kind of community, because I believe that this faith offers the best way of understanding the world, the one that offers the most healing and possibility and creativity and collaboration. I am here because I cannot figure out that world alone. I need to be in relationship in order to understand myself. I need the mirror of every single one of you to be able to see myself clearly. It is a spiritual practice for Unitarian Universalists to be together. The center of our community is our community, because Unitarian Universalism is a religion that cannot be practiced fully in isolation. Our principles require each other's help. This is a religion of mutuality, and the inescapable network of that mutuality ensnares us all. We believe, through experience, that like so much of the rest of humanity throughout history, we practice best when we regularly engage with others who are asking the same questions as us. This is what differentiates this community, this Unitarian Universalist community, and Northwoods in particular. We come together not because of what God we believe in, but because this is how we want to live our lives. We believe each person is worthwhile. We believe that we must practice kindness. We believe that we have to help each other grow and search for what is true. And what guides us in all of that, what guides and shapes this community, is our covenant, which we speak the words to every Sunday. These are the promises that we make to each other. They are promises. They are not rules, and they are not laws. There is no punishment or coercion in making promises about how we wish to be in community. There is choice and agency and freedom. All who seek these are welcome here. Only you know whether or not that includes you. If you're here today, I'm guessing that it does. Our covenant is a gift that is freely offered to anyone who shares this vision of what it means to journey together. Now, a covenant is both a resilient and a fragile thing. Resilient like our flame, and fragile like our cup. Because the promises we make are not always the promises we keep, as much as we may like it to be. The flame goes out from time to time, but it can be rekindled. And the cup is what can break, but it can also be mended. And how we choose to reignite that flame and how we choose to mend that cup are kind of where the rubber meets the road when it comes to being in community. It's all good and well to say we are a compassionate community, but what do we do when that is hard? We will all struggle at some point to be in covenant with this community in some fashion. Maybe through our actions, our inactions, our reactions. And I hope that we will stay and work together and continue putting the vision first, putting this community first. Covenant plays a long game, forming and reforming again and again over the years, growing stronger with each test, just as we learn more about ourselves each time we fall short of our own expectations. Earlier in the service, I read from an article written by Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, the UUA president, about that cup, which is what holds the light. And she ends it this way, and I will end this way today as well. What we are signing up to do as UUs is no easy task. To follow the liberating and inclusive principles and spirit of our tradition, to build a community with a marginless center, a cup to nurture a love that acts as a force for justice within our lives, our congregations, and our movement as a whole. It is this transformative love that makes the future for Unitarian Universalism irresistible. What would it look like to bring not just our shared interests and intellects, not just the things that we think and the things that we like, but our boldness and courage and brokenness and vulnerability? What would it mean to worship in ways that name all the conditions of our lives and the possibility in the beauty and love within us all? I envision a future where not only is everyone welcome, but everyone is at home. As we go forth today, may we remember that we belong to each other, and that our compassion extends not just to our community and to those outside of it, but to ourselves as well.